we are live and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Kitchen. Happy Easter today. Yesterday was Mary Pickford's birthday, and it seemed like the right thing to do to celebrate Mary Pickford, to celebrate Easter with my friend Angie Schneider and Margot Gerber, who's off camera here, and to have an Easter Sunday brunch. So welcome, Angie and Margot. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And we're going to talk about several recipes from Pickfair that are Easter brunch appropriate. We're going to talk about Mary's life, career, and we've got one heck of a show and tell, guys. So welcome. And I'm so happy that everybody's here.
Too. Yeah, Easter was one of Mary Pickford's favorite holidays. I mean, she took advantage. She was involved in a lot of the Easter services at the Hollywood Bowl, as well as Forest Lawn, Glendale. So she was always and Pickfair was always decked out at Easter time. Whether it was the tulips, lots of bunnies, she loved her rabbits. That was one of her favorite animals. So yeah, Easter was a decked out time at Pickfair for sure.
Excellent. Well, sometimes I do get people that watch Hollywood Kitchen and then they ask me later, they always say, well, you assume everybody knows who these stars are. So if someone had never, ever heard of Mary Pickford before, what would you tell them about her?
Well, I mean, just to start with, she was one of the early pioneers. So even if somebody's not even into classic Hollywood, but just into general movies and coming to visit Hollywood, I mean, she had such an impact on everything that we see today, whether it's the footprints at Grauman's Theater, whether you watch a movie that was produced by United Artists. There's just so much that she had her hands in, even from contemporary times where people may not even a fan of classic Hollywood, but she's touched anything, generation now, even like the Academy of Motion Pictures, she was one of the co-founders for that too.
And the United Artists Theater, which is now basically known as the Ace in downtown Los Angeles. Yeah. Like her roots are all over the city, everywhere.
Absolutely. And, and I still keep, as we start showing items, I still keep finding things that were part of a cause that she had created, which I think is fascinating that even to this day I find stuff that I had no idea she was involved in. So it is a lot of fun.
Wow. She was really an extraordinary woman.
Yeah, very much so. I think most importantly too is the motion picture home.
Oh, definitely.
For those that are actors, that was a huge difference for those as well, to have a place that they can retire and be taken care of. Yeah, so she had her hands in everything.
Yes. I don't know how she slept, but she must have at some point.
Yeah. Had her own cosmetic line. I mean, you name it, she did it.
Well, we do know that she had a chef at Pickfair. And one of the recipes today comes from my book, The Actors' Cookeries. I forget the full title, and at the bottom, it's for raspberry jam tarts. And it said, these are so simple. Sometimes I make them myself. And I kind of laughed at that. Yeah. You don't always see those kind of quotes and would start openly admitting they are not technically making this food.
Yeah, no, she definitely would never have had the time to make it. But yeah, definitely at Pickfair, she had several chefs, maitre d's, and they were all very much under the French influence. I mean, she was fascinated by the French culture. I mean, a lot of their furnishings at Pickfair was French styled. She even learned to speak, French along with her mom and, rest of the Pickford family. So it was very influenced. And when we had, gosh, how many years now, we acquired the entire recipes and menus that were served at Pickfair. And it's perfect years. It's a time from 1921. So Doug and her would have been settled and they got married in 1920. Pickfair was his gift to her for the marriage. And then, of course, it ends right about 1932. So that's about the time they would have separated. So the matron d that kept track of all these recipes definitely was more on the Doug camp. He was on Doug's team. So definitely once there's that separation. But, I think Pickfair really was a celebrated place during their marriage versus after.
How did you know he was in the Doug camp? Like, what did you find that kind of
some of the other, a few of the other items from the estate of the matron d where we got this from, he had gifts that Doug had given him, like razor, so it definitely seemed like,
They were buds.
Yeah, they were buds.
Okay. Alrighty. And I love that when you sent me the recipes we're going to show today, that it said served at Pickfair 1930.
Yep.
Like it was very specific about what was served, when was served.
Yeah.
And
actually, let me grab them right here. So yeah, it's separated in two ways. So what he did is he kept this old journal. And in this old journal is all the dates, and they were the different menus that would have been served.
oh, wow. Should we hold that up to the camera so people can? I'll run it by the table here so people can kind of see. This is the these are the menus.
Those would be the menus, and then
ooh, I love the Art Deco outside of the book.
And then what he would do is the same matron D was known for his handwritings. Handwritings, they're beautiful. But what he would do is every person that came and sat down, maybe we'll show that up there too, at Pickfair, he would make these little dinner cards.
Oh my gosh. Dinner card from Pickfair. Oh, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. So every dinner they would have them handmade, and then right down to the recipes and how everything was made. So it was fascinating because there was a raspberry tart that was in the Pickfair recipe, which kind of matches your point with the one that you saw in your cookbook.
And we're gonna have both of these available, so you can see the two different ways to make a raspberry jam.
But yeah, it was just very much French influence. So a lot of the recipes take kind of like that little French, even like the pastry. When we did the Pickfair version of the tart, it's got that French pastry sauce or the pudding in there. And then even when we did the deviled eggs for fun, it's a Norwegian twist. So it's got some anchovies in it, and so it's very European.
Well, I would think that since Doug and Mary went to Europe often, that would have been a big influence, right? And then didn't they have guests from around the world who traveled into Hollywood and absolutely to see it there?
Right down to royalty. I mean, the royals would come and visit. It was always kind of the running joke that when Will Rogers was the mayor of Beverly Hills, he said his main job as mayor was to tell people where Pickfair was, because that's all the people ever asked him.
Wow. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. So I always like to kind of start off with the food, because I feel like once the food has been discussed, I can kind of worry about other things. So let's talk about what we decided on making today for the episode.
Yeah, so we made a few things. We did the 2 comparison tarts. One is just wrapping up. And then since it's Easter, we did one of the egg recipes. There's 2 fabulous egg recipes in there. There's that, and then there's one that's called Egg and Coquette, which is basically a baked egg that you put in little like ramekins, and very easy to make. So some of this stuff, as we're trying to write it as a book form, we're having to practice and try it. And there's a few things that are our favorite that are just very easy to make, and I would have never thought of making it myself if I hadn't been forced to start doing it. Same thing, I would never thought of adding anchovies to my eggs, but it is different because what makes a deviled egg is vinegar. Okay. And what we made out of the Pickfair book is technically called a stuffed egg, because we don't have the vinegar. But like I said, they do the Norwegian twist with the anchovy. We use smoked salmon too if you wanted. So we did both just so we can taste the difference as well.
And I love that half of these are pink. How did you get the idea to dye half of them pink?
Those darn Instagrams and TikToks are so amazingly talented. But yeah, with the Easter coming up, people are dyeing their deviled eggs, and what I did was just use some beet juice, because it's natural, and then just topped it off with a little chamomile flower because that's edible, and it just kind of made it really pretty.
Can I show these? I'm going to show these to the camera because they look like little works of art.
Thanks, Margot.
Almost paranoid to eat these. They look so good.
It's Margot's little artistic touch there.
Oh my gosh, these look really good. So the pink ones are different flavor. The pink ones, which one has the anchovy?
The white ones have the anchovy, and the pink ones are just your average,
just the average double. Okay, I feel the need to try one of each.
Okay.
So I'm going to try an anchovy and okay, so the white ones are the anchovy?
Yes.
Okay. I will try. Are these flowers edible?
It's up to you. They're edible.
Oh, they are.
Okay. They've been nicely washed, salted, so. But they're more for decoration than anything.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is the anchovy one.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a game changer because it's like a natural salt.
Mm.
You know, you don't have to add any salt. So if you're very conscious of sodium, just add a little anchovy in it and it takes all the flavor.
When you say anchovy, is it an actual ground up anchovy? Is it an anchovy paste?
You could. Anchovies are getting a little more difficult to find. I mean, you find sardines everywhere. You can use anchovy paste if that's all you had available, but I use the actual little tiny anchovies, chop them up really fine.
Wow. Okay.
And then basically all that Pickford recipe has is a little bit of mayonnaise, a little bit of butter, and the anchovy. And that's all flavor that you got from the anchovy. You don't have to add paprika. You don't have to add all the other fancy stuff you're used to having to add when you make a regular double date.
Okay. I love this pink one. This looks so cool. Okay.
And then this is just your average. So this one I use just some, again, vinegar to make it a deviled egg, and then some mustard and your mayonnaise. And...
Very good.
Yes,
One more. And then how are the jam tarts doing, Margot? One of our jam tarts is on the table here, and the other one is still in the oven. So that's what Margot is currently doing. It's checking up on the tarts.
Yeah, that's a hard part, as you know. I mean, you've done how many years now? It's 3 years that you're done for Hollywood Kitchen.
I guess so. This is the 97th episode I've done, which shocks me, so, but that's cool.
What you learn with these vintage recipes is they tell you the ingredients, but they always leave out how to bake it. You know, granted, ovens were different then. So it's always a little bit of trial and error sometimes when you're trying to take a vintage recipe and tweak it. So.
Should we talk about this one? Okay, so this is the Pickford version.
So that's a Pickford tartlet version. Yeah. Okay. So basically what it is I just use a regular pie crust into a little tartlet. The pastry sauce is basically like an eclair. It's a typical French pastry pudding, basically. And it's that's really easy to make. It's just basically egg yolks, cornstarch. The trick with having a really good pastry pudding is that you use actual vanilla. So I took a vanilla bean, sliced it in half, scraped out all the vanilla caviar, let it sit in the warm milk for a while, and then mix it all together so you get that vanilla taste with it. And then just topped it off with some raspberries, and that was it. So that's a pretty simple one to make.
Marco, how is the other one doing?
Going to be a little too hot to eat immediately.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Came out of the oven, so you can talk about it, but don't eat them yet.
Okay, well, I'm going to show to the camera. This is what the French Pickford tart recipe looks like, so you can all see it. And did you want to show on camera how you kind of the process here while these cool off? Okay.
Yes. So basically, again, I just had made some little tartlet pies. And then in a pastry bag, I have my little pastry sauce. Just
that looks so good.
You can see the vanilla bean caviar, and I like to call it caviar, those little black seeds.
Where do you get the vanilla bean? Do you just throw that at certain grocery stores?
Any grocery store, yeah. Okay. If you usually look into like the seasoning section, they'll usually have it in a jar with like 1 or 2 twigs of it.
Could you use vanilla extract, or is that a no?
You could. You could.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of the little secret to it, is using a nice straight up vanilla bean. And then just top it off. And then if you had like a little powdered sugar even. Okay. And then just go ahead and dust it, and then it's good to go. So
excellent.
Maybe since those are still cooling.
Oh.
I'll try one of.
This looks delicious. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to try one right now.
Hopefully the pie crust is okay. I could have probably left that one cook a little bit longer, but.
This is really good.
It's all about the pudding. Where I think your version in the cookbook, the difference is that's more of a jam, where this is more just the berry with the pudding in it.
That cookbook came to me from our mutual friend Tracy Gossel. She sold it to me because she knows how much I have those cookbooks. and it's from 1916, and it's called something like the Actors Cookeries. I forget the whole name of it, but a lot of the stars in there are vaudeville and very early silent, like Fairbanks, Chaplin, and Pickford are like the three in there that everybody would know. And the sale of it benefited the Red Cross and the Actors Fund. And it had this raspberry jam tart. So she obviously liked raspberries because that's definitely
exactly. We need Margot to try the eggs to see if she tells the difference.
Yeah.
You know, I can't eat the anchovy because I'm allergic to fish.
Okay, well then you can test the tarts out. There's one for you.
If you need an egg, but I can't.
I'm going to show you what while these are cooling, Margot just got these out of the oven. So while they're cooling, I'm going to show you close up what the raspberry jam tarts look like. So basically, this is a full flour kind of dough that you cut in the shape of like a square. And then you spoon raspberry jam into the center and fold it over, kind of like you fold a piece of paper for an envelope or something.
So we use flour, butter, and then we use what's also called pot cheese or farmer's cheese, which is just in the same family as a cottage cheese, it's just strained a little bit differently, and it's a little bit more like a cream cheese almost. Oh, you tried the tart one?
So I'm sitting here shoving food in my face. Okay, sure. Are these cooled off yet?
You touch them and tell me.
So,
the jam might be super hot. Just be careful. Take a nibble.
Yeah, I can still feel this is really hot. I think I'm just going to let this cool. Okay. So, and what years were these served at Pickfair? And do you know what events they were served for, or just it was a general dinner party?
Yeah, usually they were just general dinner parties. Here, I can tell you right away the dates on them. Look up my recipes here. Good thing we have our phones. All right, so the stuffed egg, as they would call it, the Norwegian stuffed egg, that was served at Pickfair on July 26, 1921. And then the other dish we were planning on making that we kind of ran out of time, the eggs and coquette. They said that quite a few times, but the date I picked was September 25th, 1931. And then
people hear an airplane going by. There's an airplane flying over the house.
Typical LA.
Right? Should we shut the door?
Maybe.
I'm just wondering if it's going to, I'm very human about the audio.
Right. No, I guess not. It's fine.
Okay. Those that don't live in Los Angeles having helicopters is like.
That's like our normal, but right now it's, there must be an escaped convict in this area.
Yeah,
it's
like
know.
Constant. Don't like think about it. And then the tartlets was a lunch in 1931. So,
and as a Valentino fan, one of the things I find fascinating is you have the menu of what was served at Pickfair the night of his funeral.
So they did have they had a gathering at Pickfair, like you said, the night of the funeral. So that date is also, because that was kind of part of, we're not wanting to rush to make a cookbook. We're trying to determine dates and if there's anything that correlates with some of these. But really, generally, these were, just their everyday type of menus. And I'm sure they always had guests over, to serve. But it is very, very lean, a lot of protein. Neither Mary and Doug were carb eaters. So it's not like a lot of heavy load of pastas or anything like that. It's so a lot of meats that are kind of like sweetbreads, things that we're teaching ourselves to have to make. But, we're diving right in and doing the process of what it would be like, eating in the 20s and early 30s.
I always wonder, having watched Downton Abbey and loving that show, is how often the head of the household was involved in the planning of them. Like, did Mary sit down with this cook and be like, okay, so Thursday my friend Bob is coming, Bob likes blah, 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 or was it just like, I'm busy making movies, you figure out the food?
Yeah, I think that, Doug and Mary were first, as it goes for what they were willing to eat, and then just basically it was served after that. So, because she wasn't tiny because she ate a lot of nice things, and Doug had to be athletic, so they had to have their protein, and like I said, it was very specific for them. There was never any alcohol on any of the dinners. That was always kind of a big thing in Doug, is he didn't want the alcohol served. So they ended every dinner with a cup of coffee, and even it was always a running joke that usually after the dinner, they would either have a screening of a movie or they'll have games or they'll go down to what they called was a Western bar. So it was part of Pick Fair where it was just decked out just like you would think of a Western scene. And a lot of people would go and play games. But the rumor always was that as soon as the Ovaltine got brought out, that means it was time to go. We're never rude to be like, okay, party's over. It's as soon as the Ovaltine came out to be served, it was like, okay, here's your hint.
Speaking of Ovaltine, a few years ago, you and I did our first Pickford episode. And when I was getting ready for this, I was going back over my notes. And then I went through my cabinet. I found that thing of Ovaltine still in my cabinet. And I think it's long expired. I guess the question was, does Ovaltine technically ever expire, really? Because I was like, should I bring that? I'm like, will it hurt us if we try it? So I didn't bring it, but
really good for 2 years. 2 years tops.
And especially back then, I'm sure they didn't have the preservatives quite as much as we have all of our extra preservatives. But
okay, so I probably shouldn't try anymore.
Probably not.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
But I think I bought some after ours too, and I don't think I ever finished it. It's not bad. It's just I don't have enough parties to give people the hint to leave.
That's a really great way to do it, though. It really is.
I wonder if the company appreciated that was the signal to go, not like let's stay a while. Yeah. It's kind of fascinating that these recipes are something that people were eating like almost 100 years ago, and we know what it was, and now we're eating it today.
I know, and I just think, we were talking before we started how it is tough when you get the photoplay cookbooks and things like, was it a PR, recipe, or was it really something they ate? And I think regardless if it was a PR recipe, it was still influenced by that person regardless, but to actually hold the actual recipes and menus is another.
Yeah. And I noticed too, there's patterns. Like I noticed a lot of sweetbreads, which I did not know at the time. That's how I just thought it was bread that was sweet.
And if anybody ever wants to try sweetbreads and you come to Musso and Frank's, maybe you're in TCM Festival next week, Musso actually does serve a sweetbread.
Seriously? Whoa. And I noticed a lot of
that's how I knew the last time I made it was just not quite right. Because we went and tried it at Musso, I'm like, oh, this is far better.
Wow. And I noticed a lot of coffee souffle. I know that there's certain things I noticed that kind of pop up over and over again in some of these, and certain things that are conspicuously absent too. Yeah. So it's very interesting. It's almost like an anthropological dive into some of these.
Yeah. But no, I mean, Pick Fair was very much a four-course meal. So you had an appetizer, you had a salad, you had the main entree, you usually had the dessert. Like I said, then it would usually be served with either a black coffee that they just basically put in a menu. It's just coffee noir, so it was just a black coffee. Sometimes they would do a cappuccino. But noir fans, I mean, it's just fascinating that was really how they talk. Yes.
Well, another question that I have would be, okay, say Doug and Mary are out of town. What happens to all the food? Did they just make it for the staff, or did they just go, okay, go? They didn't have Grubhub, of course, but are you just on your own, or did the staff? Did they make
some people would actually stay at Pick Fair? There was a royal couple that would stay there sometimes when Doug and Mary would go out of town.
Okay.
So even if they weren't there, I think they did lend Pick Fair to people to stay there at times. So yeah, definitely, I think it was still around the clock. People there.
Or say it's a working day, you've got to get up and go to the set. Did the cooks make them this giant, or were they just kind of like
usually grapefruit? I think when you did Tracy's episode, she even had the grapefruit spoons. I have a cute little letter, was written from Mary to one of her assistants, like, Doug and I want our grapefruit at this time in the morning. It was very laid out on what time they needed it.
Wow.
And then usually after that, they would go to probably the Fairbanks Pickford studio and have their lunch and the rest of their food in the actual bungalow. But yeah, it was usually a light food that they would have for breakfast.
Okay.
Certainly nothing heavy.
And did the cook make their lunch, or did they have a commissary on their studio lot that made the lunch?
I think in that case, they did have a cook. They had a full staff over at the Pickford Fairbanks studio as well. Because again, the bungalow, and even there's one house up in Whitley Heights that was built basically almost out the same design as Mary's bungalow. But I mean, it had everything. You could live there. It had kitchenette. It had her whole vanity, her place to get ready. I mean, it was a house in itself that any of us would love to live there.
I just can't imagine the cost of maintaining that much food for that many people, for maintaining the property, maintaining just the everything.
Well, I mean, and the staff, but it was Mary and Doug's heyday. So I say Pickfair's heyday was that time, because once her and Doug separated, by 1932, it really kind of started to die down. You didn't have quite the staff. There was, events. She basically would rent out the gardens to be a fundraiser, but then was basically went to catering at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, so really in the 20s and early 30s, it was, you had the full, and Mary would sit sometimes up in her window and watch and make sure everybody, all the people that were working and serving were dressed the way she wanted them. She was very much in control over how she wanted the appearance to be. But then, like I said, then after that, it just went to more of a catering type of system. So if there was a fundraising, a lot of times, like you said, it would be the war veterans or, those type of events for a fundraiser. The gardens and the grounds would basically be used for that and then catered.
And Mary became more reclusive in her later years. So did she still have that kind of staff, or was it a kind of a really...
Yeah, it was definitely like, if you go to like the Margaret Herrick Library or any of those to see like the Herrick has a lot of her later life type of items. So there would be all of her payroll to mostly the gardener. She had people to take care of all the animals. She had several housekeepers. She did have a chef, but again, it was a bit more on the smaller scale. Because Pickfair actually, when she married her third husband, Buddy Rogers, Pickfair went up for sale, which I should have brought that in, but the sale book for when Pickfair went up for sale in the 30s is just magnificent and beautiful. But again, it was supposed to be that change of her life. Like Buddy and her loved their horses. Their dream was to own a big ranch up in San Fernando Valley. And, sometimes I think maybe she would have been happier if she would have sold it, started that new life. But then the fact that she stayed at Pickfair, had all of her memories, of Doug and her mom and everything. I do think that kind of sent her into that reclusiveness a little bit, where it's hard to have parties when they're not your parties, and some people thought I think her reclusiveness really came later, like more into like her probably 70s later on. I think what was happening when her name started being pushed out, even when she was younger as recluse, was, we're having a party and she's not here. Well, again, she was renting the grounds. Her and Buddy traveled a lot. When they adopted their two children, they took those children everywhere. I mean, they went to Europe all the time. They went to Asia. They went, the whole third floor of Pickfair was just all Asian influence from all the things she would bring back. So it wasn't as much as they would have gatherings and she wasn't there because she was hiding in a room. More than likely, she just wasn't there.
Okay.
So I think the reclusiveness really came when it was harder for her to get around, and just like Sunset Boulevard, you're just not that youthful person that people know you of, and it was hard for her.
It's got to be hard too when people remember you as a little girl, and just no one can hang on to that forever. Just time is going to catch up with everyone. And I think that had to have been really hard being famous in the public eye, because then it's like, oh, you don't look like you. It's so mean the way people treat people like that.
I always wondered what would have her life been like if she did take the role of Sunset Boulevard, because she was offered it first.
Wow.
Would we have had a different conversation? People more knowing who she was, or she would have taken that role. But same thing. She actually around that same time had two roles that she was offered. One was for Stanley Kramer, was doing a movie, I think it was called The Librarian or something. I can't remember. I don't even know if it took off, but she actually had signed on, like it was in the newspapers. She's coming out of retirement. She's going to go do this movie. And then I think she started pulling back. Do I want to do this? And then, of course, Sunset Boulevard came up where she was offered that. And there was always kind of that thing where people said she didn't like Gloria after that, because how dare you sell all those old actresses and take this role? But really, Mary recommended Gloria for that role. Mm-hmm. And then when there was a private screening of Sunset Boulevard, Pickford did come to watch it. She had to have her own separate room, her viewing room, to watch it. But they brought Gloria up to see her because Pickford was just crying like the whole time. She couldn't handle watching it. And it would have been a tough one for her, I think, to play that role. But I think we probably would be having a different conversation about her if she did come back into the limelight again.
Well, I've always been a Sunset Boulevard fan, but it's a heartbreaking movie, especially for those of us who love silent film, because to feel like is the parade did indeed pass you by, and then you're kind of rendered irrelevant and forgotten.
Right.
And when that was your whole world, like it seems like Gloria, oddly enough, or maybe not, she had so many other things she did. She was a diet guru. She had a line of dresses. I have one I got on eBay. She had all these other things she did. And it seemed like Mary's career was her entire, like her family and her career.
Yeah.
And then she kind of lost both of those at the same time.
Yeah.
And then she just didn't have anything else that was kind of her driving force.
There was an early reporter that said it best, where Mary had her best luck when her mother Charlotte was alive, and she had her worst luck when her mother was dead. So really, I think Charlotte was, I mean, when we always say Mary did this, Mary did that, Charlotte really was a big driving factor behind a lot of that. And then once Charlotte had passed, you know, same thing like Gloria. I mean, Mary had her own makeup line. She actually went on to produce several movies, and even one of Marilyn Monroe's earliest movies was produced by Mary Pickford.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to know that she had even that much connection kind of farther in. Like I said, she just kind of, it got quiet, but
weird. And she has a big black raven in her kitchen that's been talking a lot today. So.
He knows when to be quiet and when to start talking. But you know, so that's what I find, like with Mary Pickford fans and Mary Pickford collectors, they kind of dive into certain eras of her. So you kind of have like the pre-20s, her biograph years, her end years.
It's another helicopter. It's like the 10th one right now. There's a cop. There's a cop.
They heard you were talking about
Mary episode is about to take a very noirish turn, guys. Hang on. What's that?
We have a helicopter in our roadblock.
Mark's going to investigate why there are police out front, guys. So,
they're done. There it is. Oh my God.
Oh, you want to shut the door so Kitty doesn't get out?
Hey, there are police officers with rifles like right across the street. So let's
and we live in a nice neighborhood, but
this is a very nice neighborhood. Oh my gosh. This is like Mary Pickford meets cops. The reality show. Jeez.
They're talking to somebody, so
okay. Yeah, lock it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lock the back door too. Hold on one moment.
Sorry, we got locked doors. There's some weirdness going on. I really didn't expect this episode
they did put
on
the
Easter Sunday to take this
guns away, but you know
the guns are put away now.
Yeah, they're talking to somebody, and
never a dull moment. I swear.
Good old Los Angeles.
wow,
Actually, my hands real quick.
Doctor is so loud.
the cat.
Let's see if we have any comments while we're dealing with the police situation out here.
I'm gonna check in and see how these raspberry tweets turned out.
We'll just have raspberry tarts and watch the cops out front. So yeah.
It's entertaining for an Easter Sunday.
Did you show the dress?
Not yet.
Chris Rennie is saying vintage menus are definitely an anthropological dive. Yes, they are. John Vaughn says the family would come visit Mary and Buddy during the summers. I read once, Eric Johnson says, that she did not like to travel internationally and that strained her relationship with Douglas. Is that the case, or is it just at that time she didn't want to travel?
Yeah, it was. Doug really wanted to travel. Like, I mean, she was at the height of her career at that time, and he really wanted to see the world. It's not that she didn't enjoy traveling. It was, she was focused on her career. Doug was kind of get to the point where, yeah, I got my career, but I really want to go out and see the world, do things. So it wasn't that she didn't enjoy it, although she was very superstitious on planes and boats. So if ever there was a dream or just something that would hit her, she will not get on a plane. Wow. So she did have a superstitious side of her as well.
Well, if you think about a lot of stars, their careers have, we're still looking at the armed police officers. Their careers kind of have a lifespan, if you will, and it's harder on women. So maybe Mary thought, look, I'm not getting any younger. I need to keep making movies. I can't just go to Europe for 3 months. Or maybe that was part of the reason she felt this urgency to kind of make as much as she could while she could.
Yeah.
Film-wise.
And then as she got older, like again, when you get into her 60s and 70s is when she also didn't want to travel, because I got some love notes. And that's even how her and Buddy kind of communicated there towards the end a little bit was, you know, Buddy would be like, I'm going to go join Bob Hope on one of his tours or something. And she would stay back. And but she did still enjoy to travel. There was no doubt about that. It was just her career came first.
So should we dive into some of this memorabilia? Because we talked about the food. We've had Mary here a little here. So
I was thinking, because I mean, we did ours last one like 2 years ago. So I was trying to think of some fun new things that we've gotten since. I mean, that's the one thing about Mary Pickford is she was probably the most photographed woman of the 20th century. There's no shortage of photos of her. So, I mean, when we started collecting on her, we kind of went from 0 to thousands of photos in like a minute. The one thing I do say I'm very fascinated with Mary Pickford and the fact that she was photographed is, I mean, she's been photographed by the top photographers, which many actresses can't even say that. I mean, she had everything from Alfred Cheney Johnston. She had Baron de Meyer, who was the Vogue. She's had Harrell, she had Lansing Brown. I mean, you could almost do a photo exhibition of all these amazing photos that she's done. So I think we pulled some of them out last time. But some new things that have come up. One is, maybe we could tilt the computer.
I'm going to say though, having just eaten finally one of the other kind of tarts after they cooled off, it's more like a cobblery kind of thing, which I really like.
So this dress that Margot's kind of showing off. This is one of Mary's traditional black cocktail dress. There's actually a lot of photos of her wearing this dress.
She's so short.
And two reasons I love this dress. One is, again, because it is her signature black dress that she would wear. But the other is the tag that's on it, because, again, you really start learning everything that she was involved in. And here in Southern California, we had something called the Assistance League, which was another form of a goodwill, a St. Vincent. So she put a lot to support these causes, especially for women. She even did that in the early 20s. She worked with some other actresses, and they opened up a store on Hollywood Boulevard where they actually donated all their costumes for up and coming actresses that couldn't afford the item. So when she passed away, she had her big auction in 1981, and that had some of her costumes, but none of her personal clothes. In her will, when she passed away, all of her personal clothes went to the Assistance League of Southern California. So that is one of her dresses. Like I said, when you start looking at later photos of Mary, and then Margot's got her shoes, and these are her signature pumps too, the open toe.
For those of you who can't see these in person, these are so tiny. You could almost put like your car keys at the end of them and use them as a keychain.
I think you can see the size. So this shoe here actually has her name written inside it. And then I think her shoe size, is it in this one? 4.5. So she wore a size 4.
Oh my God.
Whatever that standard would have been, vintage, but they are very, very, very tiny.
I'm a 7 for context here. Those are so tiny.
Yeah, and well worn. So she's, again, a lot of photos with her of these type of people.
Angie, is it true that she really wasn't supposed to wear heels like when she was younger and like doing the little girl kind of roles?
Not so much the heels, her her jewelry, like when she married Doug, and she would always have to wear like when she did Suds, she would have to wear a Band-Aid over her wedding ring, and they would paint, makeup to match it so it didn't look like she had a ring, and they would put a little child's ring on over it. So things like that, she tried to hide and then didn't make it too obvious. But she wanted to get away from those child roles. She tried Rosita. She did want to break away from that. But the one thing with Mary and all of them, Chaplin, they were so new to the Hollywood world that making all that money, they really did respect the public. It was always funny because I have so many candid photos of just visitors walking around Pickford, taking photos of themselves in front of the pool. And the same thing with Chaplain's Home, and reporters would be like, are you comfortable with people just walking around your property? And they said, well, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have this land. So it's what's ours is theirs. And she felt very strongly with her movies too. So when she did, like, for example, Rosita or some of these more adult type roles, her ratings dropped. She wasn't selling the tickets. And so what was most important to her is then what does her audience want? And there was even a contest in photoplay where it was like, what kind of role do you want to see Mary in next? And if you submit, you know, that I think 20 of the submitters would actually get a handwritten letter from Mary, and we got one of those that was sent to the girl that had wrote to photoplay. And same thing, Mary's like, yes, you're correct. Everybody wants me to play another child role. So then little Annie Rooney comes along, and then her ratings and her ticket sales go right back up.
That's got to be hard creatively, though, when you want to do more. And also logistically, when you're 35, 37, 40 playing a 10-year-old, I mean, there's only so long that can go on before it's just
right. And you get into her later movies, again, that didn't do so well. I mean, Secrets, the later movies that a lot of people don't really like actually have a little bit more meaning to her life, I think. Like, the reason she did Secrets was really her love letter to Doug after they had separated. You know, it's that affair, what's it like to have an affair, and, you know, well, they're separate ways, but then try to come back together again. The Secrets is really like a reflection of what was going on at her time. Sorry, that's my bird.
It is action-packed here today at Hollywood.
I know, I'm looking at the police.
We still got cops out. Oh, there's another cop car. Now there's two. Oh my, okay. Margot, can you be on cop watch?
They're blocking the street. They don't want anyone to come down the street. I hope you parked on this side.
I did. That's very good to know.
I don't know if I should pop out and be like, okay.
No, you could get a stray bullet.
Yeah, I think we should just put it down and shelter in place for right now.
We can keep talking Mary all day long.
We got jam tarts. We got
we're fine. We're good. Nobody worry about us. We're good. But, you know, and the other movie that I'm probably the only person that likes this movie is Kiki.
I've never seen Kiki. I've seen the poster, which looks very
Art Deco. Yeah. I should about that poster too. Yeah, it is very Art Deco. But it's another example of her being very ahead of her time. I think a lot of people don't like it. One, the restoration's not been done. It's a terrible print that is out there. Secondly, is again, she just loved her French, you know, French influence. She tried to speak like she was this French, you know, dancer. But it was one of Busby Berkeley's very first films.
Oh, it
was pre-code, so it was one of the earliest versions of a pre-code. I mean, she drops her pants and she's dancing in her trouser. You know, it's
why has this not been restored?
So to me, and people are like, I think because they just can't get over listening to her. You know, because she is one of those that didn't really go over to the talkies very well, because she did kind of have that higher pitch, you know, childlike voice. Then when you're trying to do like a French, you know, European accent, they're like, no, we can't listen to this very long. So from that perspective, it's hard. But just to know that, again, she was so ahead of her time before all this pre-coding came into existence. She did Kiki. And she wanted that Art Deco, kind of that adult, you know, European Paris type of role that was starting to become popular here. And she knew that. She wanted to jump on it.
When I saw Coquette, I remember thinking it wasn't
good. That's an adult topic too.
It is I consider that as a pre-code, but again, there's so many disconnects because she's got the really short bobbed hair. She's got the Southern accent, which is in no way authentic.
Right.
And then she's super flirty, and she's playing like an 18-year-old, and she's sorry, there's something else going on with her. And she's like 40, and so you feel kind of like this is a little odd. And it's a kind of a clunky movie to me.
Yeah.
It's such an early sound. And then I'd always heard The Taming of the Shrew was like this complete disaster. Well, many years ago, the UCLA Film Archive, back when they were on the campus, they showed it. And I went and I was like, I will decide for myself. And it wasn't nearly as bad as I had been told. I mean, it's a dramatically truncated version of Shakespeare with dialogue by Sam Wood or something. But I thought it was pretty fun. And I thought they were so good together. it wasn't the hot mess I had long heard that it was.
Well, just like movies like Rosita, she did not like Rosita, and I think that's a very adorable, wonderful movie.
So then The Egyptian before it closed for a while, and I remember thinking, why did she hate this film so much? This film is charming. She's great. It's Lubitsch. What's not to love? Right?
I think she put so much of what the process went into making it, and she takes that very personal. So if it wasn't the best experience, like Sparrows, he didn't have the greatest experience. You know, I mean, she was her stunt person in Sparrows, and you know, you have to think she probably weighed maybe like, I think, what was her joke? When she was going over the alligators and she had the toddler on her, she's like, the toddler weighed more than half of me. You know, and I'm having to pretend like I can carry this child across a piece of wood or a log. And then you have Doug in the background upset at the directors because why are you having her over live alligators? This has to stop, you know.
Well, then also I like that movie though because it's Southern Gothic.
Yeah,
it's just so Gothic and dark and not what you'd expect from her in so many ways. Yeah, but it's also William Bodine, who I think definitely is underrated as a director.
Exactly, but and then
let's get more memorabilia.
Yeah, let me see. Oh, so a couple new things we got. We can show some fun posters since we just talked about Sparrows. I just brought what I have. So like behind us is actually a 3-sheet for My Best Girl. Probably the only one known in existence. It's missing the bottom panel, so we're gonna have an artist redo the bottom panel of the 3 sheets. So that's her and her third husband, Charles Buddy Rogers. I love My Best Girl.
That's a favorite of her silence, to be honest with you.
This is her Sparrows. That's the insert. Margot would love Sparrows because why?
Sparrows was the only film to double premiere at the Egyptian under Sid Grauman, and Doug's The Black Pirate was the other film on that double bill. And unfortunately, Mary and Doug didn't make it to the double premiere.
Oh my gosh,
no,
were they?
They wrote a letter for the program. Angie might know. Were they in New York?
They were in New York, yeah.
They were in New York. So they were traveling all over constantly, and they didn't make it to a lot of their own premieres. Doug was not at the Robin Hood premiere that opened the Egyptian either.
No.
Wow.
And then the other poster that Margot's got in her hand is, let's see, a window card.
Also by William Bodine, Little Annie Rooney.
Little Annie Rooney.
That's 2 terrific films that he directed her in.
My husband Chris and I always joke because I think when I was younger, the movie that would make me cry the hardest was Beaches, and Little Annie Rooney is Chris's Beaches. If you want to make him cry, make him watch.
It is a sad movie. It is. I can see that. I can understand.
So speaking of Charles Buddy Rogers, her third husband, this we just got just a few weeks ago. Still in the package. But this is her wedding certificate. From when she married Buddy. So, yeah.
Let me make sure I have no tart stuff on my hands. Okay, I'll show this to the...
So that was her wedding certificate. His father, it was more his family that were present and witnessed the wedding.
Sadly, her family was gone. Mary's mother died in the late 20s, and her brother and sister died in the early 30s. I can't even imagine the trauma she must have gone through having to transition to, her mother dies, the transition to sound, and then the brother dies, the sister dies, she gets a divorce, she loses her screen career. And this is all within like a 5 to 7 year window of time. That's a lot.
It would make anybody drink.
It would make anybody drink. There's no question.
And it's hard to probably see it, but that photo there is them on their honeymoon. That was for showing.
Show this to the camera. Okay. Photo of Mary Pickford and Buddy Rogers on their honeymoon.
Yeah. But speaking about Doug, this photo is her and Doug by Lansing Brown. Lansing Brown is actually he's an amazing photographer. And I'll have another photo of Pickford shown by him. We actually ended up getting the whole setting from her estate, including the glass natives, everything. But Lansing Brown, and of course I'm drawing a blank, he shot the corner, what was his name?
Bing Crosby?
No.
Oh, Russ Columbo. Yes, Russ Columbo.
Thank you. So the whole story, Russ Columbo was kind of pre-Bing Crosby, a very early crooner, and him and Lansing Brown were very good friends. And they went to Lansing's house, and Lansing was showing off his gun collection, accidentally shot and killed him, but still an amazing photographer. So this actually came from Mary Pickford's estate. So this is her personal photo of her and Doug together.
Doug was always so tan.
I was just gonna say that's one of those examples where people always joke like this man was so tan.
Well, I've heard the story about how he had trenches dug so he could jog naked and get tan.
I know thoughts you don't want to see. Let's see another Lansing Brown photo. This one's Lansing. And he really, I think, brought out a bit more of a mature Mary. So there's a Lansing Brown as well.
Oh, I've never seen that one, Angie.
Yeah. So the whole setting, the sitting that she did with him is just absolutely amazing. Which leads to versus here's some of her earlier ones. This is the one, kind of a famous one with her and her puppies. She had her own personal photographer by the name of Kale Rom. So later on, a lot of her photos, like the puppies, it kind of dates back to the Rom, but her earlier career, like pre-20s, she used a lot of the studios, whether it was Witzel, Moody, but that's an earlier one. So definitely more of a surreal type of photo.
Very beautiful.
And this is another fun piece that we got. I know you mentioned Karen. Thanks to Bonhams having done a recent.
Let me move some of this stuff out of the way for you.
So several years back, Bonhams had another grouping of some of her stuff that came from her personal estate, including these large photo albums. And a couple of them went up for auction, and the buyers broke them up and put them on eBay, which, I don't have a problem with because other people didn't get access to them. But I wanted to definitely get one to keep it intact. So what this book was her photo proof book. Oh, wow. So she would have all, here's another Lansing Brown.
Can we move the computer over the top of those pictures? So you
maybe because the book is kind of fragile.
Margot, could you take the eggs and then I'll move the computer?
Oh, yeah.
Margot would like some of these. Very
okay, I'm going to just move the computer over some of these.
Yeah.
And that might be easier.
Yeah, very Art Deco. I want to find the bunny ones. It's Easter. Another example of her. I mean, I have another version of this where she's very sheer underneath. That photo didn't get distributed. She probably kept that one for herself. But there's a beautiful bunny one in here I want to find for it to be Easter, but they're just the rows and rows of her photos. It's like a Kiki-like photo. A lot of these are taken by Edward Bauer Hesser, another amazing photographer. We'll get to the bunny one, but everybody can have fun looking at some of these photos. Here's a pretty Easter one with flowers.
Oh, yeah.
Little Art Deco hat. Where's my bunny one? That's very mature. Some more flowers, very Easter-like. That's like an Easter bonnet. Another one, pretty fun. Oh, there it is.
Ah, yes. Okay.
That one. I know, right? So this has been how she at Pickfair would have had a lot of her photographer photos as her proofs in these big books.
And that's a huge book, by the way, for those of you who didn't catch it. It's about that thick. It's very, very big, which is why I moved that.
Now let's look around cabinets here. Let's need to grab a photo here. This is from Dorothy Vernon of Hayden Hall. I think that photo up here.
That was Angie's bird again. Not me.
Not the police. So there's a photo of her, a still from Dorothy Vernon, holding a fan. And she had given this photo to not a feather fan, but a fan, through a contest, and she even signed it as Dorothy. But then here is the actual fan. And a few, like Beth Rowling, who works at the Natural History Museum, NHM, she was just blown away by the color, because a lot of times she didn't use a lot of purples in her costumes. But what's interesting is the actual costume that went with this fan is at the Natural History Museum here in Los Angeles. And the netting in here actually matches the dress. So they probably use the same piece of fabric from the dress to make the fan. But I mean, for 100 years old, the color and everything is just
vibrant,
miraculous on this.
And you have is it a window card?
Oh yeah,
a window card for
maybe
Dorothy Vernon.
I'll take you a walk around my living room here. All of our other posters are out in my office, but there's a half sheet for Little Lord Fauntleroy. Up there's a window card for the Dorothy Vernon. So a lot of times they made it look like it was a blue feather, but often was purple, and that's my bird again. And that painting there is very special. That was kind of one of my, what's that word? Like the one thing that you would love to get. So when her mother, Charlotte, was dying of cancer, the only way she was able to get through the pain, because again, they didn't probably have quite the pain medication like they do now, she took up painting. So this is one of Charlotte's paintings.
Wow.
That she had done and then given to Buddy Rogers. So Mary was always happy that even though her and Buddy weren't in a relationship yet when her mom was alive, they just got done doing My Best Girl. And so Buddy and Charlotte became pretty good friends enough for her to even make a painting for him. So she did get to meet Buddy before she passed away. So I took this weed. Sure. Yeah. I think I showed this in the last episode. This is by far one of my favorite things.
Oh, the bed doll.
This is Mary's bed doll, for those that didn't see it last time. But it's a big lavender. It's got a tag that came from Bullock's very early, but it's a French bed doll. And the provenance behind this, well, it came from the 1981 auction, and it was purchased by Debbie Reynolds. So there's actually a card Debbie wrote that she had kept with it.
Oh, wow.
She put, this doll belonged to Mary Pickford, kept it in her room, her bedroom, and she slept with it until she died. And then she put Debbie and the date on there. Well, that's rude.
Sorry, it's not me. It's the bird in the kitchen that's making all these noises.
Just because I'm so behind, I still have Christmas stuff up. Here's an example of one of her Christmas cards back when it was her and Buddy, and then their two adopted children. So we have quite a few of her Christmas cards.
And I'm sitting basically on a plaque behind me. So should I get this thing out of here?
Sure. That's another thing where we talk about everything she's done. So this was given to her by as you can see, Ida Mayer, who is Louis B. Mayer's wife. But her and the Mayers did quite a bit. I mean, they founded the academy together. But a big important thing was the Jewish Home for the Aged. So this is a plaque that was given to Mary for that recognition. We also have, when they broke ground, we have her little shovel that she was awarded. Over here, those that love Pick Fair, we have a lot of Pick Fair items. This table here is from Pick Fair.
Wow.
Just trying to think of things within my vicinity here.
Angie, I think someday when we can get it together, I would love to do recreate a full Pick Fair dining experience.
Absolutely. That's
where it's like,
here's some of her dishes.
Oh, wow, you have her
Lots of
dishes.
Like she had beautiful coffee and teacups that were amazingly hand painted. This set here was considered the breakfast set. Bowls. I would have used this for her grapefruit, but you can see all the beautiful hand painted. This set, and she used a lot of her same stuff from Pick Fair and used it into her movie set. So there's a scene in My Best Girl where she's got these tall glasses. It's the same glass.
Comical. We've got the bird making all this right here. We've got the cops who were now 2 cop cars are still out
Good.
here.
If anybody wants a key to Salem, Oregon, we got Pickford's. And since we're worried about the cops, I'll show you what my weapon is here. This is my weapon from Salt Lake City, Utah.
Wow.
Her key. This thing, like straight up iron.
Good work.
Oh my God.
So that is her key. But a lot of them you'll notice has the original 81.
Now, this is a little bit off topic, Angie, but I want to ask you, because I went to a friend's birthday party a few years ago at a 1920s mansion she rented for this party in LA. And they had all these silent film star plates. And I was absolutely besotted with them. I wanted to steal them all, but I didn't, of course. But I was amazed. And I bought one of them on eBay. It was Anita Stewart. But these are such gorgeous plates. And I'd like to learn more about them. So can you show me some of these silent movie star plates?
You can take the laptop to those.
Yeah. Because I think these are so beautiful. And I'm kind of curious as to which stars they selected and why, and what year. Do you have all the background on these, Angie?
So a lot of them, let me think which one it is. A lot of them would end up back.
Hey, this is Lottie Pickford, Mary's sister.
Yeah,
Look at the detail on these plates and the color. And
times what they were used for, like some you could see actually marketed like a hardware store. Sometimes you'll get them where there's something on the back. So I think what they were also used quite a bit for is if you had a local business, you'd be able to buy them in like wholesale and bulk and have your, like there's the theater actress there in the middle with the business name from San Francisco.
were they like giveaway promotional items? Really? Because they look so elegant.
I
Like,
think one of my actress ones do have some promotional thing on the back of it.
wow. These are really beautiful plates.
If anybody's a Fleetwood Mac fan, that tile there is from McBee when she had her big auction before she passed away at June.
Oh, wow. And of course, we should talk about the Silent Star spoons, because around 1925, Photoplay magazine did a series of silent movie star spoons. I have the whole collection, and they've got these little bitty silent film star kind of profiles at the top of each spoon, and then like a little signature of the star. And there's Pickford, Fairbanks, but there's so many conspicuously absent stars too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, how they decided which one. It could have been studio specific, who knows. But as I mentioned, she had her whole floor. She's very Asian influenced, especially on the 3rd floor. Here's kind of, again, there's a sticker from the 81 auction. But this would be an example of the stuff that she would have, her and Doug had with all their Asian accents. And for those Mahjong fans, which during the pandemic, I wanted to pick up Mahjong, but this is her Mahjong set. So it's got the MPF initials for Mary Pickford Fairbanks in there. And then it doesn't have the tiles, but it's got her little Mahjong little kit there too. So those bean pans. Here is, as I mentioned, she had her makeup line. I had tons of this. This is the soap.
Oh my gosh.
I wrote a blog. If you go to tinselandstars.com, I try to write. I need to get more time to start writing some blogs, but I actually have her whole makeup book. So it talks about her whole beauty secrets, how she gets ready. This would be like her cold cream. I have a lot of the eyeshadows and rouge. And
show them the profile on the top of it.
It's amazing.
Look at that.
And yeah, it's funny because if you watch Mommy Dearest, they show Joan like washing her face with like ice cubes. Mary's claims she did that. She washed, of course, it still has smells, but
See what smells
like that's gasoline almost. I don't know.
Smells like wax and dust. I'm kind of afraid to try really old products when I find them like that. I shouldn't.
Yeah.
On it turns.
Oh, yeah. I was at Daryl Rooney's for the Harlow episode, and he had some of Harlow's perfume, and he's like, "Would you like to smell that?" And I was like, "I'm gonna sit this one out."
That's different because the oil, it might actually keep longer, but
yeah, it might be hard to carry. But over here, not to get everybody dizzy, but this is Buddy Rogers trombone, because he was a big band player. And then right on it has his address for Pickfair Way, which leads to the next topic. After Mary Pickford had passed away, he couldn't stay at Pickfair itself, but he got the property in the back and was able to build kind of like Pickfair Lodge where he lived.
And how much longer did Buddy live after Mary passed away?
He lived a good amount of years. I think he died in the 90s. He remarried, moved out to Palm Desert, and that's where he was also buried, was with his second wife, Beverly.
Even though she was married to Buddy probably the longest out of all her marriages, do you think that he was her happiest or greatest love, or was it really fair?
So it's funny, not funny, but it's interesting to look at a dynamic of people's marriages. She had 3 marriages. So her first marriage is Owen Moore, and Owen Moore to me was her puppy love. It was her first crush. But you have to think, when you're a young girl, still a teenager yet, and you have that crush, but you have a stage mom who your career comes first, you weren't even allowed to go and see him. Or I think if her mom would have said, fine, go on a date with him, she probably would have been like, okay, I know what you're about, I'm over you. But instead, she's like, the only way I'm gonna be able to see this man is if I marry him. You know, so she married Owen more or less because that was her only way to live out this crush that she had. Then comes Doug, you know, what she had an affair on Owen. Doug was having an affair on his wife because they really were truly in love. I do think Doug was her love. Buddy, I think, was her best friend. You know, so when she was going through the hardships, right around the time My Best Girl came out, because Buddy was younger than her, but he was there for her. They became a very good friendship. So I think that was more of the I'm marrying my friend versus marrying my love. So that's why I think she's still, even though she married that person she was Buddy before she died, she didn't have the love like she had for Doug. It was more, we have, you know, our adopted children, we like to travel, we have all these hobbies and interests, but that was kind of what her relationship was with Buddy. There's that one book over there, I think, is there a book? So Mary, I mean, one of the best books, if anybody's ever starting to get to know Mary, of course, is her autobiography, Sunshine Childs. But she also wrote with some ghostwriters some fun books. This one was The Demi Widow. So this is a special one. Not only did she sign it to one of her assistants with Buddy.
Oh, wow. I love the casing.
Yeah, the person really went all out because, again, Buddy actually signed it to his assistant or his secretary.
Can I show this to them?
Absolutely. But what's
I
interesting,
love this.
Get this, guys.
Spine, and then
Feast your eyes.
Bella.
Bella is hell bent on being a co-star on this
know.
episode. Bella's the name of Angie's huge raven.
Bella Lugosi. Yeah, next time you do a horror one, Bella.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. You still got the soul mantle over there, so that is gonna happen.
Yeah, my house is a combination of
it's delightful.
Valentine outside, Christmas, Halloween. So here, this is how people wonder when she was a recluse. This would have been Buddy writing to her. It says, bye-bye, sweetheart.
Oh my gosh.
So whenever he would leave or go out of town, that's the way they communicated there at the end. Let's see, there's probably one from her to him then. They're all buddies.
To me, just reading someone's letters is such a personal window into their soul in so many ways. I've done, over the years I've lived in Los Angeles, I've done a few estate evaluations for Mark Wanamaker, where he'll send me into some house that was owned by someone in the industry. And my job is basically just to catalog everything, to say, oh, there's 6 cans of this print, there's this many scripts, there's this many photos, whatever. I've done 3 of those. And the funny part was the people were passed away when I did them, but I felt like I knew them because I handled their letters, their correspondence, their dry cleaning receipts, their notes to their kids,
They're human beings.
And you leave thinking, I feel so on intimate terms with this person, but I never met them. But just touching those letters, reading them, you just, it's hard to explain.
Well,
but
you
it's
get a
like
sense of the personality.
Yeah.
you get a real sense of the personality and their life story just in these little bitty pieces.
Yeah. No, that's why we love to collect, and like I said, we love to collect our photos. Margot and I go on this conversation a lot, like the difference of, nowadays the internet age, you can get photos anywhere. What's the difference from actually holding the original? Is just the high definition. You can really see what the photographer's details are. So collecting photos is fun, but to actually have their personal belongings is a whole different energy and a different vibe.
Now you go to estate sales, but you also go to auctions.
Oh yeah.
And then eBay. Like, what are all of your pool of sources for collecting?
The day I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is see what's newly listed. No,
nothing wrong with that.
No, because but my favorite is when you do go to the estate sales, or that rare thing also pops up on eBay because it's more the hunt. Auctions is fun, but it's kind of like, what's it, the saying, shooting fish in a barrel? It's like, if you have the
right
money
there
and it's right there, some things go crazy expensive and you won't get it, but you're not heartbroken because you're just like, oh, it would have been too easy, but finding things, the menus and recipes came from the estate sale, those are things that we watch those things so religiously to be able to know something's coming up and when to get it. But yeah, the hunt is always the best part of being a collector. And I think the items that I have that are some of my most favorite are things that I probably didn't even pay that much for, but I just so happen to find it. Like those glasses over there, those were Alice White's glasses, that were at a sale. It's like nothing special, but the way you found it, you're like, oh, those are fun.
I get the adrenaline rush. My family lives in Georgia, and whenever I'm home, I try to go to antique stores. And I probably told the story on Hollywood Kitchen before, but my friend Darren Barnes collects on Norma Shearer. I was at Down Yonder Antiques in Puller, Georgia. And across the store, I see Norma Shearer. And I'm just like, I zone in on it like the Terminator, and I go over there. And it's a homemade scrapbook of all late 20s, early 30s. And I start flipping through it. And being an Angelino, my first thought is, oh, I'll never be able to afford this. I flip it over. It was $10. And then my heart just started. I was like, oh my. And then I start texting furiously to Darren, and he writes back, there's stuff in here I've never seen, and I've collected on her my whole life. And I just was like, and then I go to the counter to pay, and the lady goes, oh, it's some old actress, huh? And I was like, yeah, that. Here's my $10. Thank you.
It's harder to find. More people nowadays, I think, know what they have, but there's still diamonds in the rough here. A couple of years ago, we went to the Mark Collective antique store over in Venice. And I got my big standee of Dick Powell from Dames. You can't, anything from those, Footlight Parade or anything. Or a fortune. I think they only had like $100 on it. And Chris and I are like, we're running out the door. Dick, we're just like, we got it. We're not, no questions asked. It's
the thrill of fun to me. Just the thrill of finding some needle in the haystack when you're just like, I can't believe my luck.
Well, thank goodness for those teenagers who would cut up the movie magazines and make those scrapbooks, because it was
speaking of, it's right on the couch by the cat there. That's one we just got.
Oh, let's see that.
And I'm not a big scrapbook collector because they fall apart.
And they're bulky, like they take up a lot of space.
And they're not the original photos. We got Lantern now, so we can find a lot of these, but this one I really liked.
Let me bring over the computer.
Sure, let's do that. Yeah.
Sorry, I know this.
No, we never scan stuff here, right? So this is an example of like what Carrie's talking about, but it's all the silent actors, including the Ziegfeld Follies. So there's a lot of Pickford. There's a lot of, here's Pickford. There's Lottie Pickford. Lottie was Mary's sister, some Doug. But there's some great data images. And the way I would use this for myself is as a resource. So I would see a photo in here and that would be added to my hunt, so I know now that these photos exist. Billy Burke.
Oh, wow.
Because we love our Alfred Cheney Johnson. We got quite a few Alfred Cheney Johnsons in our photo collection, but I use these sometimes.
It's like Pinterest from over 100 years ago.
What are we? Oh, here's Theta. So we hear Bella squawk in the background. So we have like the original, this one we have a lot of the crows. Her with the Borzoi, but there's another photo of the Borzoi. But yeah, this is our way of also sometimes knowing
Let me see the cover of it.
I know it's falling apart. That's why I just never like collecting these because they just are hard to deal
I have a couple of these too, so I know what you mean.
But
they're bulky and they crumble and get paper all over your house. They're wonderful. And to me, what I feel always when I see these scrapbooks, I think to myself, someone really loved that person and they cared enough to spend the time to, and a lot of the ones I've seen, like the one you said, it's very carefully trimmed. Like it's obvious they were very meticulous and put a lot of love and care and time into that book. And they were probably very proud of it. Like I bet anytime they had friends over, they're like, hey, look at this book. So
exactly. It does help. Like I think Pinterest 100 years ago is the perfect way.
That's a perfect way, Margaret, to say it. Right.
Personal photos, like photos of something you liked and cared to collect. So it's great cultural anthropology.
And like I said, as a historian, just the reason I like that scrapbook and why I don't usually get others is because there's just images I've never seen. So now I'm like, oh, I'm on a hunt for those.
I'm sure you've seen that one that the Pickford Archives has where some girl in England like tried to get into Mary and Doug's hotel room when they were there at some point, and she has this whole detailed thing about, you know, someone came out and talked to us with Mary's assistant, and then this happened, and she saw Doug running around, and it's like, wow, like,
very detailed.
It wasn't a reporter; it was just like
journal, diary.
Journal. It's pretty fantastic.
Let's see if we're getting questions coming in. I do want to preface, for some reason, every time I answer these questions on Facebook, they don't pop up until like 20 minutes after I've ended the episode. Then all these questions. Right, we do have 59 comments so far, so let me see what we have here. Okay. John Vaughn says, Buddy would tear up when he would share with me about Mary. Oh, thank you for sharing that with us. That's really cool. Wayne Wallace, wasn't Mary with Jeanette and Jean on their honeymoon cruise to Hawaii? That's true?
Yes.
Right.
And so Mary also had, you know, again, as she got older, she tried everything. She even had a radio show called Parties at Big Bear.
Yes.
And she had Jeanette on as a guest before. So
they were friends.
And then Buddy and Jean be on the big band circuit and stuff are very good friends.
John Vaughn says, Buddy was very private and he would agree with you, Carrie, about his personal expressions. Okay. Catherine Bird just bought a Jean Harlow scrapbook off eBay. Hey, that's cool. Awesome. All right, guys, if we don't get to your question, I promise Angie and I will try to go on later and log in and answer them. Okay, Monique in Amsterdam is saying she should start her own museum. Her collection is really. This is like a museum with animals and food is basically what Angie's house is. And cool holidays everywhere. It's awesome. It's very awesome. Okay, well, those are the questions and comments I'm seeing pop up, at least for now.
Yeah, everything in my house has to have a story. Yeah.
Well, one of my friends,
my display cases are all from books. So I got one this one guest house, got Janet Jackson's lamp, you know, just because we needed a lamp at the time and they had an auction. And sometimes here in LA, it's not like you're spending a lot of money because people don't want to ship the stuff. So
Angie, can you talk about this that you recently put?
Yes. Tell us about it.
Well, there's a table that your laptop's on, and then this base with the beautiful flowers. You've probably heard of those that are in the LA area or maybe on social media. We just lost one of our favorite restaurants here called Offline, which is in a beautiful little craftsman home. It's just, again, the importance here of preservation. And so when they had kind of a closing sale, I definitely had to get a few pieces. So these little teapots they had used at the restaurant for the little flower displays. We got a little table. We have quite the restaurant collection. We have a lot of Brown Derby stuff. So it just kind of fits because, again, we know that we're just stewards. And even though Off Mine just closed, 2 weeks ago, I'm like, thinking like the Brown Derby stuff. I'm like, what if in 50 years? And it's like, oh my gosh, this is from Off Mine, you know?
And by the way, you and Margot are both involved in the Art Deco Society of Los Angeles and the Hollywood Heritage Museum. And both of those organizations are very, very key to try to preserve the history that we can preserve here in Los Angeles, which is an ongoing struggle. So I'm very glad both of those organizations exist.
Yep. And we use places like Pickford as kind of the lessons learned of not having that preservation in place.
Oh, I wish so badly there was like a film of Pickford, like where you could get a film tour of Pickford, you know?
I keep thinking one day that'll turn up. I do hope. I'm sure it does exist.
Yeah, there used to be a thing on YouTube called Ghosts of Hollywood, and I can't find it there anymore, but it was like made in 1930, and they show the wrecking ball hitting all these silent movie studios with the glass walls and everything. And they show Mabel Norman's dressing room being demolished, and I'm like, oh. But it was made in 1930, and it used to be on YouTube. The quality was poor. It was like watching it through a glass of milk, but it was still interesting as an artifact. And I hope it pops up back on YouTube again, because I don't know where it went, but I think those things are still really interesting.
Ken Murray, he went to a lot of homes. I think there's some, outdoor shots of Pickfair and videos and stuff. So I always catch some of the Ken Murray shows too. Those are great to watch.
So what is your favorite Mary Pickford movie?
That's a tough one. I would say it would be a cross between probably Little Annie Rooney and Fanchon the Cricket. I think Fanchon, because that movie was the reason Mary got into preservation. So quick story as we're wrapping up, that's the only movie that all three siblings are in. So Mary's in that with Lottie and Jack. There was that brief time and Mary's like, just destroy all my films. I don't think nobody to ever see their, it's new generations coming, they're not going to want to watch this stuff. But that movie was lost up until the day she died, never knowing that movie would ever come up and be in existence again. So she always felt that was the movie she wanted to see again, because it had all of her siblings in it with her. And fortunately for us today, we have it. It did come up and it's been restored, but unfortunately in her lifetime, it was lost. See it again. So it is a great movie. It's a fun movie on top of it, but it's also, again, has that deep.
And what happened to Lottie's daughter, Gwen?
So Gwen was adopted actually by Mary and Doug. Okay. So when Gwen was born, she was named Mary. But then, of course, when they adopted her, they're like, okay, we can't have you be named Mary too. So then her name got changed to Gwen. And then Gwen went off. She moved to England. She had some children of her own, and there's still some descendants, through the Lottie side of the family.
Okay.
That little box up there is actually from Lottie. So there's not much stuff out there, obviously, of Jack and Lottie personal belongings. Margot's trying to
destroy your house. I'm like, how do you use that? Okay, I can be in and get it.
So this beautiful little box. Some of Gwen's family, or Gwen's daughters, I believe, had an auction in the 90s down in Florida. So this piece had come up for it. So it's a very old antique little box.
So did any of Jack's possessions survive?
No, none of this yeah, and whether or not some of the stuff that Lottie's auction had might have been to Jack, we don't know. I mean, even just there's a poster behind me as an original poster of Jack with Louise Huff. Even a poster of his is so incredibly rare.
Yeah, it seems like he kind of, to a large degree, vanished.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Exactly. I don't know how much Mary might have had something to do with that she destroyed some of his stuff, just knowing that, the life he led. I don't know. But yeah, a lot of that stuff is just, we have some great photos and autographs and stuff of Jack. But yeah, as soon as a poster became available, we had to have it, because we have one of Lottie, plenty of Pickfords, but we had to have Jack as well on the wall. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Angie, thank you so much for doing this episode with me and Margot helping thank you, Margot. Thank you so much to Margot also for helping
with the flowers and the decorating. So
yes, and I will soon be posting a blog with the recipes, the video, and all of this. And thank you everybody for watching. I do have a Patreon if anybody wants to contribute, because that always helps offset the cost of these things. And please keep tuning in for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen.